Hi everybody and welcome to our presentation. I'm Danielle Barrett and joining me today is Vonda Serra, Kevin Cronin, Aisling Dennehy and Niamh Doyle. Our company, Cubs Consultancy Group, has prepared a 5-year plan to promote the growth and survival of IAG in such an unprecedented world. We have included an order of speakers list to be referred to at further details. This slide here shows the IAG financial standing. The three graphs presented shows the previous growth projections of IAG. From 2011 to 2019, total revenue grew an average of 5.2% yearly, passenger revenue grew an average of 6.5% yearly, and passengers carried grew an average of 11% yearly. However, each of these fell from between 60 to 80% in 2020 due to COVID-19. A further breakdown of 2019 versus 2020 is shown on this slide, with a breakdown of each of the airlines shown. Key issues faced by IAG. So, COVID-19 is undoubtedly the biggest issue faced by IAG. However, they are mitigating these issues through a number of actions, such as the restructuring of British Airways and Aer Lingus, saving them 30 to 40% of their employee annual costs, scrapping dividends in 2020, further development into the cargo market, and grounding of level flights and entering Level Europe into insolvency, which will be discussed later on. Another key issue faced of IAG is competition within the aviation market due to reduced demand and higher need to attract customers, which Aisling will now discuss.
Thanks, Danielle. To analyse the competitive environment of IAG, it is necessary to use the Porter's Five Forces framework. In the framework, we can see that the threat of new entrants into the aviation industry is quite low. For the airline industry, barriers to entry include high startup costs, competition for airport gates, and large economies of scale. The aviation industry also has an oligopoly market structure, meaning it is very difficult for new airlines to successfully enter this industry. However, IAG does not have to worry about this threat. The bargaining power of buyers is also very high in the industry. The reason for this is that customers tend to have no loyalty to these companies. They will fly with whichever airline can supply the lowest fares. The advancements in technology over the last 20 years, such as Skyscanner and accessibility, has increased the bargaining power of buyers. The bargaining power of suppliers is also quite high in the aviation industry. The only two suppliers of aircraft for the airline industry are Boeing and Airbus, and thus they can charge large prices. The second suppliers within the industry are jet fuel, and because jet fuel prices are determined by world trade, suppliers have high levels of bargaining power over companies such as IAG. The threat of substitutes is also quite low in this industry. For routes outside of mainland Europe, the only other option is to travel by boat. However, this is far too long and thus poses no threat to IAG. The degree of rivalry in the industry is quite high, so since IAG consists of a small proportion of the airlines within the industry, it is necessary that it monitors competition with the intention of winning the rivalry battle within the industry. I will now hand you over to Vanda to talk about the first recommendation.
Thanks, Aisling. So for the first recommendation, we have the IAG recovery strategy. So some actions have already been implemented by IAG to start the path of recovery, but unfortunately they're not enough. Although all airlines recorded a loss during the pandemic, cargo recorded an increase of 33% in revenue, which made it the only profitable branch of the group. The pandemic didn't affect only the financial aspects of businesses, it has also changed the behaviors and attitudes of consumers. Airlines have focused on the promotion of cleanliness and responsibilities with the goal of portraying themselves as more trustworthy and attractive. Now, will that be enough to ensure the full recovery of the group? We found that this will not suffice, and after a detailed analysis, we recommend the following changes and actions are undertaken by the group. So we have the recommendation of the 3 C's. First is cost cutting. While conducting a market analysis, we found that intra-EU flights represent 50% of all air travel. Whilst the pandemic is still disrupting all operations, the group should focus on minimizing costs by focusing on profitability strategy, not growth strategy. By conducting further research, airlines should focus on the most profitable routes and postpone all routes that might not result in having a full capacity aircraft taking off. The second C is cargo development. Cargo has proven to be a strong point of the group, and further investments are considered necessary to ensure its future success. All available funds are recommended to be invested in the logistics, automation of the processes, reducing labor costs, and ensuring their presence and contracts on every continent. Also, ensuring their presence in the Egyptian airport. The third C is customer retention. retention, the group is recommended to further develop their promotional and loyalty programs, implement personalized emails and promotional codes for returning and existing customers. As a strategy to attract new customers, all airlines should implement student discounts and promotion for young adults at least until 2023. Students and young adults represent future customers, and by implementing the stated promotions, the airlines are trying to ensure the development of purchasing habits in that group of customers. Second year is strategic marketing strategy. So increasing brand awareness by participating in all the major sporting events, such as the World Cup or the Olympics. Improving social media presence, creating viral challenges and competitions to get customers' engagement is expected to increase the group's airline popularity and attractability. Year 3 is building up stability. When the normal schedule in 2023 is reintroduced, the airlines can focus on collecting profits and building cash flow. This is made possible by the 24% drop in oil prices, which has resulted in a higher margin of profits per share for the airlines. Now I will pass you back to Aisling to introduce the second strategy.
Thanks, Vanda. Due to the financial constraints of the pandemic, Level's business has suffered significant damage, with the entirety of its fleet grounded in March 2020 and Level Europe entering insolvency. Thus, a motive exists for a profitable company like Vueling to execute an acquisition strategy. With the integration of both airlines, this will greatly lower costs and will allow IAG to focus on strengthening its demands for services by rationalising its hub and spoke structure. In the next slide, we can see that this will create significant cost synergies and enable both airlines to achieve greater levels of profitability and efficiency, benefiting both their shareholders and internal and external stakeholders. Therefore, it is in the interest of both companies to commence discussions and to draft proposals and forecasts. Since short-haul travel will more than likely recover faster in the meantime, it is recommended that Vueling should focus on implementing permanent student discounts. Partnering with the likes of Student Universe will allow students to benefit from discounting rates through websites and apps such as Unidays. This can serve as a large role in creating brand awareness and capturing market share. With approval granted for this consolidation strategy by the end of 2022, this will allow Vueling to pull the valuable parts from Level out of its liquidation process, and will entitle them to maintain Barcelona as its main hub, sustain its position as a low-cost long-haul carrier, but also allows them to benefit from Level's strong transatlantic connections. By the end of 2023, it is recommended that Vueling enhance its presence in the USA while retaining its presence in Latin America and Europe. Evidence suggests that O'Hare International Airport in Chicago and San Francisco would be ideal locations to fly to, as both these have strong linkages to other domestic destinations throughout the US, which will essentially allow connecting passengers to have greater choice and allow them to travel with ease. Once route expansion to the US proves to be a success, it is recommended that Vueling should attempt a foothold into another global market. A pastel analysis was conducted for Canada to get a direct feed of the benefits and opportunities of this expansion. With a young, diversified population, the Canadian market complements Vueling's effort to devise itself as a low-cost long-haul carrier. Thus, by the end of 2025, it is recommended that Vueling should commence discussions to secure access to gates and slots in Canada's leading airports such as Toronto and Vancouver. I will now hand you over to Kevin to talk about the third recommendation.
Thanks, Aisling. The next strategy we looked at once again involves Vueling. This strategy involves the implementation of the hub and spoke model into Vueling's business model. As you can see from this image, the model focuses on a core airport hub with many spokes or routes flying from the hub to various destinations. The hub which we believe best suits this model is Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. The reason we believe an Amsterdam hub would best suit Vueling's model is because Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport is seen as one of the best connected airports in the world. Schiphol is the leading airport hub in the world in terms of passenger numbers according to the 2020 connectivity report done by Airports Council International. For an airline which is looking to gain a foothold in new transatlantic markets, they will have the best chance of succeeding if they have access to higher volumes of people. Amsterdam's geographic location in Central Europe will provide Vueling with large-scale accessibility to these passengers and flight connections to and from North and South America. In the next slide, I'll go through why we believe that this is a 3-year strategy. Year 1 planning, Year 2 adapting, Year 3 fully operational. As we are all aware, the aviation industry is currently at a standstill. This is why in Year 1, Vueling should focus on organising the strategy so that they can begin operations in 2022. Schiphol is a Level 3 coordinated airport. In these airports is a slot coordinator, and all airlines must have slots authorised by the coordinator in order to land or take off at the airport. Under the EC slot regulation, slots may be transferred unilaterally within the same commercial family. Therefore, Vueling could seek help from larger IAG airlines such as British Airways or Aer Lingus in obtaining slots in Schiphol. We also believe that Vueling could benefit from providing a passenger lounge for the customers by obtaining the use of the new British Airways lounge at Schiphol. This would help Vueling to boost customer satisfaction and it would improve the overall customer experience. In year 2 of this strategy, Vueling should have all necessary negotiations completed in order to begin their long-haul services out of the hub in Amsterdam. This will be their adaptation stage. The hub and spoke model will be new to Vueling's business model and it may take some time to adjust to it. Passenger numbers will be relatively low for transatlantic flights until vaccinations are largely completed and year 2 may be slow for Vueling in Amsterdam, but it will be a good opportunity to adjust and make changes to their long-haul hub and spoke model if needed before the return to normality in the coming years. By 2023, COVID-19 should be completely under control and the aviation industry should be fully operational once again. Vueling should aim to be well established in the long-haul industry by this time. They should aim to deliver an efficient service with multiple destinations out of Amsterdam to North and South America. Depending on the success of the hub and spoke model, Vueling may benefit from adding more destinations in year 3. This could help them in becoming one of the leading transatlantic airlines flying out of Amsterdam. I will now pass you on to Danielle, who will bring you through the next strategy.
Our fourth recommendation is to further penetrate the African airline market through acquiring part of South African Airways. South African Airways is a state-owned flag carrier airline of South Africa, which was set up in 1934. It was a popular airline, receiving many awards such as 14 Skytrax awards and becoming South Africa's first 4-star airline. However, South African Airways are facing severe financial issues and have not made a profit since 2011. They are indebted to over €500 million and have been constantly bailed out by the South African government, who are now looking for an outside entity to help them to save the airline. We therefore have a number of recommendations for IAG. We recommend that they invest almost $300 million to gain 30 to 40% of the company, working with the South African government to run South African Airways. While this is a large investment, IAG have the liquidity available for it and can set up a payment agreement over 5 years. When this goes through, it is recommended that South African Airways focus on their continental routes, as international travel is not predicted to return at this time. Using IAG loyalty as a motivator to fly with IAG will entice people to use this airline, as they can gain loyalty benefits if they also use other airlines. South African Airways should also integrate with the IAG airlines further. Through research into different African countries, it's recommended that they invest in an airport slot in the new Egyptian airport and use this location to act as a connection flight to other airlines flying here to allow international travellers to see more of Africa. This recommendation continues into year 3, where IAG should entice visitors through advertising the beauty of Africa. Afseta should make cross-African travel more desirable, as it allows free trade across African countries, including the freedom to travel. In year 4, with the return of the international travel, we recommend focusing on strong routes such as London, Dubai, and Munich, and discontinuing long-haul and costly routes such as New York, Sao Paulo, and Washington, as these routes are already successfully catered to by British Airways, Aer Lingus, and Iberia. Hoping that South African Airways builds their finances and return to previous success, they can now look into penetrating a new market in 2025, cargo. With British Airways and Iberia transporting cargo from London and Munich to Africa, South African Airways can mirror this by transporting cargo within Africa. With the partnership in place with the logistic companies Aero Africa, they can use this partnership to evaluate the feasibility of this move. We hope this recommendation will allow IAG to access a whole new market, as they currently only have a small foothold in Africa. And with the African economy constantly on the rise, we believe that the time to make the move is now. I will now pass you on to Neil, who will take you through our 5th recommendation.
Thanks, Danielle. Our 5th and final strategy is the development of Air Europa. Air Europa is Spain's 3rd largest airline and travels to over 45 destinations worldwide. The benefits of this acquisition include Air Europa's young fleet, its strong presence in the Latin American market, and its low-cost long-haul model. Air Europa received the title of Most Efficient European Airline in 2018, and IAG can use this as a marketing tool. This strategy is developed over 3 years. It is expected that the acquisition of Air Europa by Iberia will be complete by the end of 2021. In 2022, market development for the company should begin. The market development plan was conducted with the use of an Ansoff matrix, and it is recommended that Air Europa grow the company through market penetration and market development. One method for market penetration is to advertise IAG's loyalty program. With over 9 million active users, this is a large opportunity for Air Europa to grow. For market development, it is recommended that Air Europa set up a route to Bangkok, Thailand. This was established through a pest cell analysis, which did not result in any warning signs for the route. Thailand has a large population of 70 million and also strong connections to Hong Kong. These factors create a large customer base for the company and would result in welcome growth. The new route should commence in 2023, as travel is expected to return to normal at this time. If the route proves as successful as we see it being, it provides an opportunity for further expansion into the Asian market, meaning further growth opportunities in the future. I'll now pass you on to Kevin.
One of the core responsibilities of any business or business group is to deal with risk. The aviation industry is particularly risky because of the expenses that IAG must incur in order to operate. Currently, the risk at the forefront of the industry is the uncertainty around the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody knows when the industry will return to profitable levels, and this is a huge concern to every airline. Secondly, no strategy can be put in place with the certainty that it will be successful. IAG must adopt risk when implementing these strategies. There is a risk surrounding financial loss, destruction of brand image, fear of travel after the pandemic, and so on. IAG must be prepared when taking on these risks so that they can deal with any issues going forward. Many of the strategies outlined in our presentation and report will require large amounts of capital. IAG must do a deep analysis of their financial position when entering into new strategies, such as the joint venture with the South African government for South African Airways, or else they may invest more capital than they can afford. If this were to happen, they could destroy the perception of the group by having an airline which is performing to a low standard. In the next slide, I'll go through how they can mitigate these risks. They could do through market research, review finances regularly, and in-depth planning. Market research would allow IAG to develop a greater understanding of the markets in which they are operating in or hope to operate in the future. It would mitigate the unknown for IAG. In our report, we use models such as Porter's 5 Forces model and the SWOT analysis to gain a better understanding of the industry and its markets. Secondly, as mentioned in the previous slide, IAG must review their finances. This will enable them to plan for the future and to carry out feasibility studies on potential strategies for their airlines. Lastly, IAG must carry out in-depth planning. This ties in with every aspect of IAG's operations. In-depth planning will reduce the probability of failure. If planning is carried out correctly, IAG should be able to align with their business model to maximise choice and creation. I will now pass you back to Niamh.
Thanks, Kevin. When deciding what strategies to include in the report, we created a decision matrix, which you can see here. The alternative recommendations that we did not use were the Finnair merger, the Comair growth strategy, and the sustainability strategy. We did not include the Finnair merger due to the company having a large amount of debt. This would have damaged IAG's financial position too deeply. We decided to go with South African Airways instead of Comair for expansion into Africa, as Comair only caters to South Africa, which puts a limit on growth opportunities, and also because Comair is already a franchisee of British Airways. We decided that sustainability would not be a major focus in this report due to the fact that it is not revenue generating, which is important in a time like now as IAG aims to get its financials back to pre-COVID levels. However, the company is still keeping on track with its plan of net zero emissions by 2050. I'll now pass you back to Vanda.
Thanks, Niamh. So to conclude, the group has made significant changes to ensure survival, but additional adjustments and improvements are required to ensure profitability and full financial recovery. Following the stated recommendations should increase the popularity of the group, facilitate growth, and give IAG competitive advantage with a large market share. Thank you for your attention, and we hope you take our recommendations in consideration.